The life of a fisherman, it never gets old. So welcome to the show. Come on, yo, we're going Ike.
Hey everybody, hope you've been enjoying the Going Ike episodes. I want to talk to you about the most recent kayak bassing. Man, let me tell you, I'm new to bassing in a kayak. It's so much fun. I learned a lot during the filming of this show on the tackle to use. But I also want to talk to you about the bait and technique that smashed them that day. And you know, we had a pretty good fishing day. We had clouds and wind, and we had stained water, and the most important thing we had was a falling barometer. But even with all those positive conditions, we still had to trigger the bite to fish by creating what I call a reaction bite. And reaction bite, a good way to talk about it is you're forcing that fish to bite it. He's not biting it out of hunger, but he's biting it out of instinct. And we forced him that day to bite it, and we did really good using a very special bait for not only dirty, overcast conditions, but a special bait when you're trying to trigger the bite. And we used a vibrating jig. A lot of you guys know vibrating jigs. You know about the chatter bait. And we used one by Molix called a Lover. It's the same kind of bait. And if you look at that thing, you know, a vibrating jig, the Molix Lover, is really a hybrid bait. And it's kind of a cross between a jig and a spinner bait. And it also has some of the attributes of a crankbait. And it's the perfect style bait to trigger bites. And in the particular lake that we fished, the bass were laying down in this grass. And it was hydrilla. And the hydrilla sat anywhere from 4 to 8 foot of water. If you've got shallower than 4 foot, no grass, no bass. If you've got deeper than 8 feet, no grass and no bass. So they were in that grass, but they wouldn't come up and eat. You actually had to trigger them. And the key to this bait was to throw it in that grass and purposely, on purpose, try to get the bait hung up in the grass. And once it would hang up in the grass, and you're going to see it in the video, I used little snaps. And when that bait, you can see it, would get caught in that grass and snap out and change direction, that's when the fish bit. So key when you're trying to cause a reaction strike to get that vibrating jig to change direction. That was absolutely key. You know, for trailers, I like a lot of different trailers, but one of my favorite is a crawl style trailer. And we used a crawl by Berkeley Havoc, and it's called a rocket crawl. If you look at it, very traditional looking crawl. I only make 2 small modifications when I thread it on my vibrating jig. The first one is I get rid of these long antennae. I want to make it a more compact jig. So I'm just going to rip those antennae off. And then the second thing I do is I like to trim it up just a little bit. And I'm going to bite off about 1/8 or 1/4 inch of the head of that bait. And then all we're going to do on that vibrating jig is we're going to thread it on to the shank of the hook. And when you see it go on, you're going to see why this is such a good bait on vibrating jigs. There it goes. And look at those 2 little crawl legs sticking in the back. So not only was this bait vibrating, got caught in the grass, we snatched it out. And as we snatched it, it changed direction. And the whole time, those little rocket crawl legs were moving. Absolutely key to catching the bass that day. You know, the other couple things I wanted to talk about, and again, I'm still learning, but a long spinning rod was really key. And normally when I fish a vibrating jig, I'm in my bass boat and I use a casting rod. But because I was in a kayak and you're so low to the water, you really needed more leverage on the hook set and you needed a longer rod for a longer cast. So I went with a really long spinning rod. In this show, I used the Abu Garcia Ike Series 7/6 long cast spinning rod. Perfect rod. This particular spinning rod is more of a medium heavy action, so it's perfect for those little bit bigger baits. So the rod was key, the reel was key, and I used a brand new reel by Abu Garcia and it's the MGX spinning reel. And one of the great things about the MGX is it has a larger diameter spool. And it's got a little bit faster gear ratio, but it's got that big, deep spool. And that's what you need when you're fishing in a kayak. You know, the last thing was the line. And again, when I'm at my bass boat, a lot of times I'm going to use fluorocarbon for a vibrating jig. But because I was in a kayak, because distance and leverage really mattered, being so low to the water, I went with braided line, and I used direct braid, and I used a line by Spider Wire, and it's called Stealth, and I used it in the 20-pound size, so it's got 20-pound strength, but it has a real small diameter, and it's perfect for a spinning rod. Long cast, ripping it out of that grass, positive hook sets, even low to the water in a kayak. Let me tell you something. If you haven't experienced kayak fishing, get one. Especially try that new Hobie. Get out in the water, try it. If the fish aren't biting, make them react with a vibrating jig like the Molix Lover, and you're gonna have a great day like I did.
When I fish like him, you know I'm fishing hard. You might wanna say that I'm going Ike.